You might think you know a woman, but what if I told you the most important signs of who she truly is aren't in her sweet words or the affection she shows you when things are going well? Feminine character doesn't shout, it whispers. And, ironically, it reveals itself in the moments you're least paying attention. Many men still fall into the trap of judging a woman by her beauty, her charm, or how much she desires them. But the truth, as uncomfortable as it may be, is that none of those things tell you who she become once the thrill fades. Most relationships start with chemistry and end in disappointment. And do you know why? Because no one ever taught men how to read the subtle signs, the ones that live in her eyes, in the silence, in the choices she makes when no one is watching. The good news? You don't need a complex manual for this. With a bit of emotional intelligence, conscious presence, and observational power, you'll begin to see what most ignore and protect your heart from walking into places where respect and depth have never existed. This video will show you 4 signs that reveal the woman behind the performance. No matter how hard she tries to hide it, these behaviors always slip through. And the best part? Once you learn to recognize them, you won't just understand women better. You'll start to understand yourself better too. You'll stop begging for affection and begin choosing with clarity. You'll stop being fooled by shiny packaging and start valuing what's real. But here's the thing. If you don't watch until the end, these signs will continue to fly under your radar. And the price could be yet another heartbreak. Now that your eyes are more open, let's dive into the first sign. The one that shows up when no one's watching, but screams her deepest truth. Let's begin with the first sign, often overlooked, but more revealing than any words: how she treats those who have nothing to offer. There's a quiet moment where a woman's true character shows up without filters, without masks, without emotional makeup, in how she treats people who can offer her absolutely nothing in return. That's where the subtle signs become most visible. It might be the waiter at a restaurant, the janitor in her building, or even a stranger on the street. A woman with genuine emotional intelligence doesn't change her posture based on someone's social status. And this has nothing to do with being nice. It's about having real, internalized feminine dignity. A man who wants a conscious relationship must become a master of reading between the lines. It's not about what she says during a romantic dinner. It's how she acts when faced with someone who's socially invisible. A woman who smiles at the manager but ignores the valet is revealing more about herself than she realizes. Your observational power here is your greatest weapon. Look at the small gestures, her tone of voice, her patience, or lack of it. These little moments reveal whether she has authentic empathy or just well-rehearsed manners. Many men confuse social performance with integrity of soul. A woman can be charming to those who benefit her, yet cold and rude to those who don't. That's not elegance. That's hidden behavior that betrays a transactional worldview. A stoic man sees beyond the surface. He knows that masculine self-mastery includes paying attention to what's hidden beneath socially polished attitudes. True love begins where personal interest ends. A woman who treats others with respect, even when no one's watching, has deep-rooted values. If you're getting to know someone, notice how she handles the mundane. How does she treat a slow cashier? Does she say thank you or just ignore them? That reveals more about her feminine instinct than a week of sweet conversations. The silent test happens in daily life. You don't have to provoke it. Here's a practical example. When you're at a restaurant with her, does she look the waiter in the eye while thanking them? Or does she act superior? When the delivery guy shows up, does she smile? Does she offer him water on a hot day? These little gestures are loud indicators. They reflect her level of emotional maturity, and no amount of selfies or surface charm can hide that. Men with refined masculine energy pick up on these cues with surgical precision. These aren't judgments, they're invitations to see what's real. A woman can dress elegantly, have great conversation, and even quote philosophers. But if she steps on people who can't give her anything back, she's revealing an emotionally unstable foundation. Stoicism teaches us to seek essence, not appearance. And essence lives in unplanned behaviors. That's where your inner validation comes in. When you choose to see what she shows, not just what she says. Practicing this also sharpens your own self-confidence. When you train your eyes to catch these patterns, your standards rise naturally. You no longer fall for momentary charisma. You start choosing with intention, not desperation. More importantly, You start valuing yourself to the point that you'll never accept someone who only respects selectively. A man skilled in nonverbal communication can even tell when her kindness is genuine. Or just strategic. And if she passes the test, great. But if she fails, see it as a gift, not a loss. What you learn in a week might save you years of emotional damage, because subtle disrespect always grows into blatant devaluation. And that's just the beginning. The next sign reveals what happens when words sound nice, but promises disappear like smoke. Now let's move to the second sign. One no mask can cover for long. Broken promises in the mirror of her soul. Few things reveal a woman's true character like the way she handles her own words. It's easy to say things that sound good, but keeping your word when the excitement fades, when life gets routine, or when there's no personal gain, that's rare. A woman who makes promises and breaks them, even small ones, isn't just failing others, she's betraying herself. And that's one of the clearest forms of hidden behavior most men overlook. It's not about grand declarations. Sometimes it's simple. I'll send you that book I mentioned, or I'll call you when I get home. If she forgets, or worse, just doesn't care anymore, that's a subtle sign. A woman with developed emotional intelligence understands that a promise is a reflection of her identity. She keeps her word not because someone's watching, but because she respects herself. And that speaks volumes about how she handled deeper emotional bonds. One of men's biggest mistakes is romanticizing. She's just forgetful. Be careful. Sure, genuine forgetfulness happens. But there's a big difference between being forgetful and being emotionally careless. When she forgets something you asked with care and doesn't even apologize, that's not a slip. That's a lack of conscious presence. And without that, the connection begins to erode. A man with masculine self-mastery recognizes that difference without needing to dramatize it. The philosopher Seneca once said, "To promise is easy. To fulfill is hard, which is why so few are worthy of trust." Let that sink in. Pay attention to how she reacts when reminded of something she promised. Does she deflect? Blame someone else? Get irritated or apologize with grace? There's your answer. And don't think this only applies to romantic relationships. Those who break promises in small things will likely do the same when things get serious. That exposes the weakness of her inner validation. In a disposable world, commitment is almost a relic. And that's why the one who keeps her promises stands out. If she says she'll support you, even in something small, and follows through, that reveals emotional maturity, value alignment, and a rare kind of beauty: consistency. A woman who honors her word is one who can build something lasting. That consistency is what separates real love from momentary convenience. Real life example: she says she really wants to watch a documentary with you on the weekend. The day comes and she doesn't even mention it. You bring it up and she casually says, "Oh, I just wasn't in the mood today." Even a small slip like that shows how lightly she treats her own commitments. It's not about control. It's about reading the signs with strategic perception. Because a broken promise today might be a sign of emotional abandonment tomorrow. And when she keeps her promises, especially when no one is watching, that shows a level of self-confidence that's magnetic. A woman who honors her word honors her principles. And that creates a solid foundation for any relationship. There is no such thing as a conscious relationship without consistency. Stability starts with small decisions: replying when she said she would, remembering what matters even when she didn't have to. And if she fails to follow through, don't react in anger, respond with clarity. A man with mature masculine energy expresses how he feels calmly, without demanding, but also without tolerating repeated patterns. Because if ignored, this behavior slowly corrodes the connection. If she withdraws or gets defensive when asked for accountability, brace yourself. You might be about to uncover something deeper. Because often, arrogance is born from unhealed pain. And that brings us to one of the most misunderstood signs. We've now reached one of the most dangerous and most well-hidden signs: the pride that masks emotional wounds. When arrogance reveals insecurity, a woman who constantly needs to assert herself, who walks through life with an air of superiority, is usually trying to hide something much more delicate: unhealed wounds. Female arrogance is rarely a true sign of strength. Most of the time, it's armor built to avoid feeling vulnerable again. And this is one of the most deceptive subtle signs for a man who hasn't yet developed sharp observation skills. At First, she might seem confident, independent, even seductive. But over time, the dynamic changes. A wounded feminine instinct is a master of disguise. Sometimes, inflated ego covers the pain of past rejections, betrayals, or low self-worth dressed up as empowerment. She speaks loudly, dominates every conversation, refuses to be contradicted, not out of real strength, but out of fear. And a man with conscious presence will notice this in her need for control, her sharp responses, her constant urge to prove she doesn't need anyone. But deep down, all she wants is to be seen, truly, without judgment. It's not your job to fix this, but it is your responsibility to recognize this hidden behavior before it turns into a toxic dynamic. Women with emotional armor often test your patience, your boundaries, even your energy, not because they're malicious, but because it's a pattern of protection. And this is where a man with masculine self-mastery stands out. He doesn't react, he observes. He understands that anyone who lives behind defenses is protecting a wound they've never healed. Common example: a woman who has to win every argument, who never admits she's wrong, who mocks any opinion that contradicts hers. At first, she might just seem strong. But in practice, she's saying, "I can't afford to be weak again, so I attack before I get attacked." This demands behavioral interpretation, not judgment. It's not about criticizing her. It's about not letting yourself be fooled by a false sense of confidence that's as fragile as glass. This is where you must set healthy boundaries. A man who doesn't stand firm on his boundaries will drown in the effort to please a woman who tests them constantly. A Stoic doesn't play that game. He doesn't argue with her ego, but he also doesn't negotiate his peace. He observes, reflects, and decides whether it's worth walking beside someone still trapped in her own defenses. That takes courage and a strong sense of inner validation. Many men confuse being patient with being emotionally complicit in someone else's instability. Here's the truth: arrogance is not the same as confidence. A confident woman is calm, listens, reflects, and can back down without feeling diminished. An arrogant one needs to win, needs to prove something. And that's a clear sign of emotional immaturity. A mature man doesn't play ego games. He brings presence, calm, but unshakable. He understands without submitting. And with that, he protects himself from relationships that drain instead of elevate. That's masculine energy in its purest form. If you notice this pattern, try initiating sincere conversations. Ask if she's willing to talk about her fears, insecurities, or past wounds. If she withdraws, mocks you, or tries to change the subject, it's a sign the armor is still fully in place. And don't kid yourself. If you ignore these signs, you may end up emotionally exhausted trying to prove your worth to someone who doesn't even see her own. Sadly, this is common among men who haven't yet awakened to deeper female psychology. And now, a quick pause. If this kind of content is opening your eyes to things you used to overlook, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this is just the beginning. Let's keep going. And if all this still seems confusing, wait until you realize even kindness can be a subtle trap, and only a trained eye can tell the real from the rehearsed. Performative kindness versus authentic empathy. There's a massive difference between being nice and being genuinely empathetic, and this is where many men get confused. The woman who smiles at everyone, who hands out compliments easily, who always seems sweet, isn't always being real. Sometimes it's just a performance, a social act crafted to please, to manipulate perception, or avoid conflict. This difference, subtle to many, is a turning point for any man with observation power and conscious presence. Because kindness is one thing, authentic empathy is something else entirely. Here, nonverbal communication speaks louder than words. Watch if she truly connects to people's emotions or just follows a sweet girl script. An empathetic woman listens with her eyes. She comforts with presence, not with canned phrases. She shows emotional intelligence by not trying to fix someone's pain, but by simply being there. The performative kind one. She's more concerned with how she looks than how you feel. She's an emotional actress, not a genuine witness. Can spot the difference in simple situations. If someone shares a struggle, does she truly listen or change the subject? Does she embrace the moment or shut it down with "don't worry, everything will be fine"? A surface-level woman avoids emotional depth. A woman who values a conscious relationship dives in with you, not to save, but to be present. And that says more about her true character than any inspirational quote on her Instagram bio. Attraction psychology tells us that men often fall for sweet, gentle, caring women. But that sweetness, it can be taught, rehearsed, faked, especially today, where videos teaching feminine magnetism and how to attract high-value men go viral like makeup tutorials. Yes, many women are learning how to act empathetic. And in that process, the authentic feminine instinct gets lost, replaced by an emotional performance. It's up to you to discern the difference using sharp behavioral interpretation. Here's a practical test. Notice how she handles your emotional tension. Is she uncomfortable with your vulnerability, or does she hold space for it? Does she interrupt or let you sit with your silence? That's a powerful yet quiet signal. Because empathy isn't in the words, it's in the willingness to share the silence, to respect pauses, to not make your pain about her. That's what separates a woman trained to please from a woman living with real emotional maturity. And a warning, empathy doesn't only show up during hard times, it appears in the good ones too. When you celebrate a win, does she truly celebrate with you or make side comments? Is she happy for you, or does she seem threatened by your light? A woman with solid inner validation can celebrate others without feeling like she's losing something. But a woman who lives on external validation often resents other people's joy without even realizing it. A stoic man knows trust requires patient observation. A woman who lives empathy doesn't need to prove anything, she just is. She holds herself with feminine dignity, connects with depth, offers her presence, her time, her essence. And this kind of sensitivity is not weakness. On the contrary, it's the foundation of a real lasting bond. A man with balanced masculine energy can feel that frequency, and he invests in it, not in the superficial shine of someone who can charm but not carry. Because at the end of the day, the right woman for a man who works on himself, who knows himself, who respects himself, isn't the prettiest or the sweetest. She's the most real, and reality takes courage to feel. Now that you've started to train your eyes to see more clearly, get ready to notice signs that used to fly past you. Because true stoicism isn't just about seeing the world clearly. It's about seeing yourself through your relationships. And that, my friend, changes everything. Now tell me, how many times have you ignored these signs and regretted it later? How often did you fall in love with the image you created of her, and not with what she was actually showing in between the lines? The truth may sting, but it sets you free. It's not your fault for not seeing it before. But from now on, it is your responsibility not to keep lying to yourself. You're holding rare tools in your hands: strategic perception, behavioral interpretation, self-confidence, and conscious presence. All of that gives you the power to make wiser, fairer decisions for yourself. Now that you know how to read feminine character behind the mask, you're one step closer to taking emotional control you've always lacked. So here's a challenge. Next time you're drawn to someone, don't be swept away by appearance or charm. Pause, observe, pay attention to the silences, her reactions, how she treats those who offer her nothing. Is her empathy real or rehearsed? It might seem subtle, but this will save you years of emotional damage. Even better, it will make you a man of feminine dignity, who chooses from clarity, not need. Now tell me, which of these 4 signs opened your eyes the most today? Drop it in the comments. Your insight could open another man's eyes too. And if you want to leave your mark here, write, "I now see what I used to overlook." That way, I'll know you stayed with me until the end, and that this message truly landed from the heart. Thank you for staying until the end. Your attention, in this noisy world, is a gift. And if this video helped you in any way, help me back. Like this video, share it with a brother who needs to hear it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We've still got a lot to talk about, and I want you here for every moment of it.